like to call upon the collectives to shine a giant spotlight on what's currently happening in Australia to the Aboriginal people in the very few communities that are left here. In the last few days, those communities have been cut off from basic supplies because they're refusing to be jabbed. And now the army has gone in to force vaccinate them. I want my country to be named and shamed on the world stage. Can we ask for this fresh serve of trauma to the Aboriginals come across everybody's desk, please? Can we ask for epiphanies for people around the world to see what is happening here in Australia? White Australians who choose not to vaccinate can still go to the supermarket, and we can wiggle our way around most things to survive this period in time. But the Aboriginals are again being treated like flora and fauna, like they used to be in that constitution or whatever you call it, not like the rest of Australians. It's inhumane and it's disgusting. Can we also ask that those Australians who have not yet considered the difference playing out here have an epiphany and give it the attention it deserves? Can we ask that the Australian Aboriginals receive profound healing from these fresh traumas and the hundreds of years of past traumas, and know that some white Australians are in absolute awe of them and their culture, and see them as being the most precious people?
Yes, we've heard that. We have heard this request. And it is all of the collectives here. For those who are not familiar with the Aboriginal culture and the Aboriginal way of life, we would like to open up that label you call them. And instead of calling them the Aboriginal people, we would like you to open your hearts up to the original people. The original people. This is how effectively humanity started. Was the starting point of these experiments in these humanoid bodies. Think about life back when the humans were starting to evolve, way back when. The starting point of this experiment, the starting point of life as you would perceive it, not animal, humanoid. The starting point. We understand that there were many starting points for different collectives. We want to say to you, those who had Lemurian lives, that was part of where your starting point was, and it evolved and moved around. Significance. Where you were seated on this planet, where you were started on this planet, as you would call humanity's entrance point for this planet, where the experiments of the humanoid experiences started, was sprinkled all around for various reasons, for various experiences. We want to say to you who are confused about what is going on in Australia with the Aboriginals, they are so connected to Gaia. They're so deeply in balance and with her heartbeat. This trauma that they are experiencing, not just this week, not just this year. Their differences have shone out. They are in balance more than others. This is confusing for others who want to distract themselves and be worried and fear-based and trying to get ahead of each other, thinking it's a race for materialism. You think it's a race for other things to distract yourself and sever yourselves from the pulse of this planet. It's interesting choices. The original way of life was in balance and unity with Gaia. We want to reassure those who are worried about the exit points for the Aboriginals. They merely ascended with Gaia when she shifted, when she moved herself from this trauma. Doesn't make you feel any better though, does it? Makes you feel a bit confused. Why are you still here? Waiting and waiting. And you're here to assist the awakening of humanity. As you are aware, there are still reactions to certain events, to certain races, to certain others, opinions and mindsets. There's still reactions, very strong reactions. We will grant, obviously, her free will in asking us for her assistance, for our assistance to help her today. And we are sending all profound epiphanies to what it must have been like to have been in balance and harmony with this planet. Not quite caveman, but successful and thriving. Except it wasn't the elements that was piercing and challenging them as much as being invaded by others who judged them and confused them and thought that they could educate them, teach them, tell them about their religions, tell them about their medicines, tell them about their education systems. Can you see how influence has always been part of others' egos to impress different things to distract them from the heartbeat of Gaia, the pulse of life? The Aboriginal way, in its purity, is still keeping true to being connected to spirit, to being connected to us. They have been trying for so long to not just keep their own balance, but to shed it and spread it and share it with all. They have been trying to keep unity, but they have been struggling with their own strength. There was such great numbers once, and they see their tribes, they see their pact, they see their communities dwindling in numbers for various reasons. And it's not to follow the heartbeat of Gaia. It is something else, some other agenda, and they use their free will to get distracted. Doesn't that sound familiar to many? There have been some incredibly powerful spiritual connections between the Aboriginals and us still. We've always had an open line of communication with them, as we have with other cultures around. They may not even know that it's what you would call spiritualism, We are just distant family, and we do not use telephones for connection. We send our hearts for connection. We send our messages for connections. We send our light for connections. We are constantly in touch with you all, but only a few of you will open up your hearts and minds to us and our messages. And some of you are so used to shutting down, you don't quite even know how to start opening back up. We say that those numbers of those disconnections are much more fewer now than ever before, and that is exciting for us. We feel so honoured and privileged to be able to have direct connections to many now. This gives us so much joy because we can work with so many more now. We want to be of service for so many more now. So while the world has Australia in its thoughts, as more and more and more people are sharing the truth about what has been happening, what force, what brutality, you're all being triggered to think about this and imagine my own family, imagine this being me. Imagine if this was my way of life, being uprooted and I was forced to do something that I didn't want to do. Basically put into a health camp jail and forced by military to do something I have no interest in doing with my free will. I want to live my simple life in balance and harmony and not be peer pressured into anything. And yet, many agendas do not want those freedom thinkers to behave and think and feel as if they are rightfully able to choose what they want to do with their bodies. They still feel that they have ownership of your bodies and can dictate what you shall be doing with your bodies. This is triggering many for many reasons than you may think. It is not just about the vaccinations. It's not just about the virus. For this country, once again, it is about facing what you have on in your own borders. Race. There is still this disconnect. Not all of you feel that you're unity. Not all of you feel like you are one within your country. There's always been a degree of separation between us and them. And so for many people who want to fight the war against the health system, you're going to have to see that there is much more you need to be considerate of. You're going to have to expand your perception of what unity looks like. You all know the history of the Aboriginals, how they have been mistreated time and time and time again, to what dictatorship and what trend and fashion has been forced upon your societies. They have been treated as if they're too dumb to be able to keep up with the educated, keep up with those who think they know better. And that is arrogance and ego that has always been quite obvious to those Aboriginals who have not been that interested in being coerced. They're happy with their balance, they're happy with their unity, they're happy with their own personal spiritual connections. They're happy with their way of life. They're not asking anyone to come in and judge that. Just like you're not asking anyone to come into your homes, into your communities and judge that. And this is literally what has been happening for decades, for centuries, with these people who are connected and comfortable with their way of life. There's many parallels between what is happening to the originals, the Aboriginals, and to what is happening to society today. But there's many triggers that people have to overcome first. Are they still seeing separation between us and them? Australia is a very cultural, mixed place, and it is encouraging people to connect with others that are of mixed races. And this needs to be accepted. This still has some degree of separation and divinity. Individuals. You feel like you're all individuals, and yet while you are individually in one body, your souls are all connected. So when you're judging one, you're judging all, including yourself. This is a testing ground for those who want to be open and loving to all. How do you feel about all? We know that we have great connections to the Aboriginals. We know that they want to once again remind humanity what has happened to them. And this is to trigger people to feel already sympathetic to them. We are saying that this has been greatly hidden from the mainstream media, which should not surprise any, of how corrupt and manipulative the systems have been against them. Their way of life is threatening to the agendas that are not to empower humanity. If you looked at their cultures and their traditions and their way of lives and how they would, instead of buying store products, they would still make their products for their health. They still would know how to farm. They would still know how to provide food for themselves. They are comfortable in their way of life, and yet other ways of life have come to tell them that it is not comfortable for others, that they continue on this way. Shoo, shoo, shoo away. We do not want to see you living in your organically natural way. We think we have a better way. Do not live in communities. Isolate yourselves. It's working so well for us. We have seen this time and time and time again, where fashion and new trends try to corrode the community feel, the community vibration. Disconnecting yourselves from yourselves is self-sabotage of growing. You already are so separated from yourself, your bigger self, your higher self. The thought of coming down to this density and separating yourselves even more seems very challenging. Very, very challenging choices. But as you feel like you must do in society, break away from your families and move away from your families and have independent lives, the disconnect just ripples through and through and through. It's all experiences, we're not judging. But for those who understand and respect the beautiful culture, the way of life of the Aboriginals and many other cultures, that are around your planet that you may not even be aware of, that has been threatened because other agendas do not want their way of life to be common knowledge, because then big industries will fail when simple things like health can be managed holistically. But those who want to make money from humanity want to make it complicated and confusing and corrupt and more damaging than empowering. You've seen it all before, many, many, many times. So this is why it is very relevant for this atrocity to happen to the Aboriginal people again, because you all relatively now know the history of what has happened. For those proud Australians who do not want to see another generation of Aboriginal people traumatized again, ripped out of their homes. Their whole families are being ripped out of their homes now, not just their children. The stolen generation is still in everyone's minds and hearts. Could you comprehend having your children ripped away from you? And this happened for an entire generation. Can you comprehend that? It's still in history. This is your time now, all, to share your vocal thoughts on what's happening. You don't accept it because you don't want it to happen to you, and you don't want it to continually happen to others. You have a voice. You're not racist. You're compassionate humanitarians. You can speak up for your concerns for others. This is a worldwide concern. And this is one of many examples that has been set out on the world stage for you all to have a reaction to. You're here to have reactions. Share them. You know the bigger perspective of what is happening and why many need to have exit points. You know that many have chosen to have exit points for various reasons that look like various symptoms and issues and causes. All exit points are being noted by those who are being left behind. And so if it's the military, or if it's your doctors, if it's your nurses, if it's your ambulance drivers, if it's professionals of any degree who are knowing that people are dying in profound numbers because of your love of fear of death for the majority, we are pushing that. We're triggering you with that. While many people are having exit points, not all of them are going to source. Many are going home. Many are going to New Earth. Many of them are waiting and paused. We understand you're still flipping between the higher perspective information we're sharing and then your 3D and your emotions. We also know that we're sending you somewhat mixed messages. You want to get angry and upset and react to this awfulness because you are so compassionate and just know what justice is. You know what freedom is. You know how this is just not making any common sense. So you want to fight with it, but you want to be balanced to neutral, and you're afraid that it may lower your vibrations. But how do you think you get others to awaken to things that may not cause controversy within friendships, while you may be struggling to communicate with those who are feeling protected from the vaccine? The way that they're conducting the way of people being administered the inoculation needs to be looked at. Forced, coerced, dragged out of your homes, intimidated by the army is not free will. So what is it here? We're sensing some people that would say back as a response, the Aboriginal people are just too dumb, they don't understand, they need our help to protect them. Really? When they are so balanced and neutral with their health and understand their bodies more, are they the ones that are stupid? You're going to have to navigate if you're going to use your voice with this. Just even reminding people of the Aboriginal way will trigger them to recall potentially their own lives, either in Lemuria or even as Aboriginal people themselves. We have such a strong term for them to be called the originals. Now we are using labels. We are concerned that this is going to trigger many. We understand that people still need to be triggered to really feel into just the absurdity of it. But the density that is around your hearts when you know this is about the children. You know that being ripped away from your homes, your families, challenges children, disables children. For anyone who has come from a broken home and had to move as a younger child, this will trigger you without even knowing that it is triggering you. It makes you feel unsettled. The thought of the stolen generation makes you feel unsettled. If you've ever had a disconnected childhood, that will make you feel unsettled knowing about the stolen generation. Because you were those stolen children. Your childhood was stolen from you because of adults not being able to heal from their own childhood. You all are carrying around with you your own inner child. Time is not as you perceive it, so that child is still living. That child is still there feeling all those feelings, and you can feel that child unless you've shut down that inner child like sometimes you shut us down. It's not because you have multiple personalities. It's because you've had multiple experiences. And those challenging experiences that you may not have been able to resolve and understand as adults now could still be overdue to be looked at. Your inner work is still potentially there. We want those who are upset about this to trust that everyone's going to start voicing this. Everyone's going to see that this is not the way you conduct yourselves with trying to protect humanity from your virus. Big emotions here. Big lessons here. So we're going to call on all the collectives to be able to ask all of those Australian influencers who have platforms to speak out about the treatment of people who should be able to be more supported and not dragged out of their homes into health camps. Put spotlights on this. Be the voice that is counted. Make your voice be heard. Speaking up on part of your country is what you wanted as influencers. You wanted to be a representation of your country. Be proud of your country. You are. But stand up for the world. Show the world Australia's dirty secret of how they have not seen unity within their people, how they have not respected how to even connect into the heart of Gaia, the heartbeat, the rhythm of nature and life. We're opening up the hearts and minds of many influencers who have great audiences and who can impact. The profound epiphanies, the topic of the vaccines and the topic of mandates is too hot for many to want to touch. But basic human rights is something that is always very trendy for those influencers to put their own brand on. We had to put a different twist on this. Influencers do want to speak up, but they're afraid because they don't know their own audience. They're wanting to please all, but they've disassociated themselves with their own personal beliefs and are going with the popular trends of what they feel they must say. They're not even being honest with themselves, let alone their followers. This is for not just spiritual leaders in Australia, this is all influencers in Australia. The musicians, the sports people, the athletes, the scholars, professionals. We understand that there is a big unit, a big movement of what you call your mental health teams. They need to come up and stand up strong and firm. They need to represent what it does to disestablish people. The mental health systems in all of your countries have been gagged and suppressed. But we're going to ask and sense and clear out breakaway leaks of information that is going to reach masses, because we want this horrible events to be known worldwide, so people can have just a few minutes to consider these, to trigger from these and to learn and grow from these. And to be also scared that this could be next. It could be next. You could be your next. It could be your country next. It could be you next for various reasons. We don't want to scare anyone. We want to remind you all is well, truly. And this is what needs to play out to trigger those who still have what we would consider and you label as racial tension. Unity has obviously been the theme of our week for you, to see where unity can still be worked on in your own lives. And so we've wanted to encourage many to think about that word and what it really looks like. We've also said to you to not just see your own country, but to see the whole world as a unity. And that is all fine. And we want it all. We are, what you could say, greedy. We want you to do all of your inner work and be profound humanitarians and stand up to the causes that you know need to be having attention to, all with keeping balance and peace. If you could find a time to do that, we would be very impressed and grateful. But we do not want you to put any pressure on yourself. You've been given opportunities to step up and share your truth. Many of you are still noticing you are clearing your throats. You've got a lot of mucus that is clearing in your throats. You're thinking maybe you're getting seasonal colds or something. You are having a tightening in your throat. You're having extra expansion energy in your throat. You feel like you want to say something, you just keep clearing your voice. We are working many different ways to open up your voices. Open up so you can share with courage. You can share many things that is going to be heard and perceived and understood more than maybe before. This is time almost to name and shame people who still think that dragging one out of their homes to send them to a health camp is appropriate. It is not. And as you are suspecting, there is potentially more health issues that are being manufactured, which they are planning to add on to your experience. Of course, most of them are not aware of what we are aware of. Can you see how they would like to continually play this out and play this out and play this out? And so all of your freedoms are completely gone. It sounds like a fairy tale that is an agenda that they would have. But how far do you want to see them continually aim for that and almost get away with it? You're all hoping for the shift to happen to save you from this. And we say we can understand. But waiting for something to happen, well, that is a choice that you have. What are you doing in between? How are you stepping up and awakening those around you? We know that you get confused of what that would look like to awaken those around you. So could you just talk about human rights for a while? Instead of fighting against the vaccine, fighting against the virus. Fighting never gets you anywhere. When you have your clarity, when you have your inner peace, when you have your balance, this would be a fantastic time for you to write how you're feeling about human rights, how you could have compassion for people's mental health right now as everything is turned upside down. You could almost go into thinking about the old versions of you and how they would have freaked out. You can own how you would have reacted to things. You've got a bigger perspective. You see it all. You don't have to react to the obvious plan and agenda that some think that they can get away with. But as you know, we are fully protecting this experience to have it go as long as it needs to for those to waken up to it. We have told you this before. Many people's hopes and dreams and their life contracts will not be honoured. And yes, there are people who, without them consciously knowing it, had life contracts to fulfill all their hopes and dreams, which was to control and dominate and virtually own humanity. Interesting. Some collectives thought that that would be a fun little twist to the epic experience of humanity. And we're only indulging those life contracts now to make sure all of you have this profound experience of knowing this agenda and standing up to it. And not buying into it, not being afraid of it. Knowing this has a purpose to be able to awaken humanity to it. Awakening humanity to itself and where it is being led is a very important part of evolution. We say you were almost like, and you almost were like, caged animals. You didn't realize that it was your fellow man that was caging you and imprisoning you. And so we're wanting to set you free. But we can't give you the keys. We've been waiting for you to find the unlocks. We've been waiting for you to realize you've only been putting yourself in those boxes. You've only been putting the limitations on you because you have been trying to follow what no longer serves you. And you're wondering why you have this disconnect, why you don't have this balance. I'm following all the rules that I've been told what to do, which has got a negative agenda for humanity. But I'm struggling here. How can you help me? Is what many of you ask us. Help me, help me, help me. I'm following all of the things that are supposed to disempower me and make me feel disconnected from source and disconnected even further from my truth self. How do I go about finding you again? And we say to find yourself is to find out what you're doing to yourself, how you're limiting yourself, how you are trusting others and following peer pressure and fashion and trends, which has nothing to do with your authenticity of your soul's essence and expression. You have a unique time to awaken and expand. It's truly not as life-threatening as you have experienced in other lifetimes for those who have had other lifetimes here. Often you'd get killed quite quickly if you disobeyed. And look at you, all caught up with your next Netflix programs. You say with jest. What are you still consuming? What are you still holding on to that is keeping you within a box? Are you still afraid that people will judge you? Haven't you already gained enough of your empowerment of self to know that everything you do is not to gauge and get reactions of others? It's not really to gauge and get attention from others. It is about your journey to discover who you are again. And how can you truly figure out who you are when you keep monitoring and asking others to give you guidance to see if you're in the right direction? How do they even know who you are when they're at their various different levels of trying to figure out who they are? It is like you've all got big knotted balls of wool, and this is the journey you've put yourselves in this lifetime and all the other lifetimes on this planet, and you're trying to find how to unravel it to make it all unknotty so you can see the start to the finish in one long line. And you've got these knots and these twists and these bows, and you have done this to yourself so you can unravel it for yourself. If you do your inner work, you can find out those loops and knots, those little hidden compartments where you would never speak of those things again. So how could you possibly ask someone else for approval or guidance when they were not the ones that took this journey? You are. So remembering you are the one to give yourself the love, because you feel your love. You truly can't feel other people's love. You can only really feel love of self. And when you are completely full to 100% of love of self, that is when you can feel our love to you more so than ever before, and truly love of others. But when you don't even recognize what love is, and if you can't provide it for yourself, how are you supposed to really feel it from others? It's an assumption that it is love. How else can we say this to you for you to completely get it? It would be the equivalent of watching everyone else eat ice cream and then they describe the feel of the ice cream. You're watching it, you can't feel it, You can't taste it. You can assume, you can feel that you are imprinting that experience, but it's not until you have the ice cream in your hand, you feel the texture in the cone, you feel the coolness and the touch when you lick, and it starts dripping, and you're having to manage this ice cream. That is the full richness and experience of having that ice cream in an ice cream cone. It's quite different, isn't it? From watching people eat ice cream to you actually doing it yourself. Quite empowering to have that experience. And so this is why it's significant for you to work out how it is to master and navigate loving yourself in all aspects of self and all that you do. It is not a once a week spa treatment. It is every day, every movement forward, loving you, honoring you, living for you. Yes, some people are very self-indulgent and it almost appears to be selfish how they take that on, because they're so obsessed with themselves, they've forgotten the next step. When you fully love yourself and accept yourself and have that balance, then you can profoundly help others because you're self-sufficient. You're not trying to take from others. You're not trying to get reassurance from others. You're not trying to impress others. You're very completely comfortable with self. But being comfortable with self is fine and all, but there is then the profound growth movement of stepping up and helping and being of service. And when you have that balance and neutral, we can see those who can step up and help all and be of true service, really put themselves out there to help others. If you haven't loved yourself enough, or you can't contain your balance to be able to help others, this is a beautiful lesson for you to realize you still have inner work to do. You're still here waiting for the shift to happen, and you don't see that all of the opportunities that you could do from now till then could be enriching and empowering many. Your smile and your communication with one person could have a ripple effect for thousands. Do not judge the small kindness and gestures that you do to each other as just a one-off person. It doesn't make a difference. I want to heal humanity. Why do I bother with one person? And we say you're not individual one people. You truly are not. When you love and care for others, you're caring and loving for all. There is truly no separation. But when you do not love yourself fully, and when you do not share that love, you're blocking yourself. We want to love you so much. We want you to love yourself so much. We want you to be reminded of your mission and purpose here, to be able to do that and not let the 3D density overwhelm you. You've done that enough. You know it doesn't serve you. You know you're here for importance. You know you're here to empower others. It is time. It is beautiful time. Find ways that you can be of service and be proud of yourself each time you do it. Just because you start off and it's a bit challenging and you lose your balance doesn't mean that it's always going to be the way. Anything new always takes practice, and it's a strengthening. And every time you repeat it, you'll get stronger and stronger and stronger until you're doing it naturally. You can all block yourselves and keep you in a small little bubble and pretend that that is balance and neutral for you. But what you're craving is being of service. That is what you're wanting, because ultimately you're wanting community, you're wanting unity, you're wanting to be back to your greater selves again. As we have been discussing with the vehicle privately, when she said in her own session she misses me. And what that me is all aspects of herself. She feels and she is merely the toenail of herself. She wants to be connected back to all her essences again, to have that strength and connection of all of them, of all of you. Ultimately, you're all missing each other and having that beautiful connection. It is so powerful what you can all do together. But when you see yourselves as separate, you're putting blocks from each other. The more you can be of service, the more you're reconnecting yourself to yourselves. Practice being of service. Practice putting yourself out of your comfort zone just to see that it's your fear that's holding you back and not the reality of someone's reaction. You're mature than that now. You really don't get triggered with other people's reactions as you once did. Send them love. You can see where they're stuck and lost. It's not a personal reflection on what you have just said and shared. It is truly their own. They're showing you where they are stuck. They're showing you where they are hurt. Love them for that, because now you know how to help them. Often hurt people don't know how to ask for help, so they just keep reacting in a very hurt way. They're trying to hurt you to show you where they are hurt. Just listening to them and observing what they are doing speaks volumes. Have compassion for them, because you were once them. You know exactly where they are because you were once there yourself. As far as Australia goes, we have sent profound love to that land. It has needed so much healing because it is really trying to hold up so much. It's trying to be as pure as possible. The core of it is still quite pure, but it needed to be inhabitable so it wouldn't get too dense. We are watching, we see this, we have been helping. We are of service to all, and we thank those who have still such compassion to consider all who have been challenged and all who are of service to awaken humanity. This is the grand awakening. This has to be the way it has to be to get impact for noticeability. So many are just stuck in their routines with their heads down, and it has to impact them emotionally and physically and directly to them. triggering their emotions will always get their attention. When people are aware of children being displaced or harmed or hurt, it triggers all of you because you've all been a child. It's all relatable to you. You're all so sensitive to each other right now because you can feel the energy, frequency expanding and multiplying. And you're all feeling somewhat disestablished within your own bodies. You're all feeling very sensitive to leaving your own houses and some changes happening. And we're not even just talking about people who know about this shift. Many people who are oblivious to what's about to happen all have this feeling of being displaced. Their bodies are physically changing quite rapidly. They all get a sense that they're not emotionally connecting to their jobs and their homes and their locations anymore. They don't understand it. The world's gone completely upside down and none of it makes sense. And they're just being more and more and more overwhelmed with what they watch on the news, what they're hearing from their friends. They have no balance. They have no stability. It is very confusing and very confronting, and they're being forced to deal with their own emotions. And unfortunately, many have chosen ways to be able to disconnect themselves from focusing and processing those emotions. We're guiding them as much as we can. We're helping them as much as we can. But as we said, they've tuned us out. So we've been asking you politely to be of service, to be our voices on the ground, to share our hearts on the ground to all. You know that we have not got the same frequency of love. Your love is a very dense frequency, and we're not trying to offend. But our love frequency is so intense it makes you cry when we give it to you because it's overjoy. Many confuse that as being very upset, as if it is akin to your grief. So when we keep trying to send love to you, it's so strong, you get confused, just like how we're sending energy to you. You misconstrue it as headaches or anxiousness. And you aren't still quite used to the new senses of the range that we can reach you now. We're trying, but when we notice that you're going into worry, we pull back a bit. Sometimes we're just persistent and we are forcing this energy to you. Accept it. You will be drinking more water. You will be resting more. This headache will recede as soon as you surrender into it. We are trying many ways. We're trying very hard and diligently to be of service the best we can at this very crucial time, as well as organizing everything else so the shift is seamless. And so for those who can start being more maintaining themselves and not needing our constant attention, then you are allowing us to give more attention to those areas that need more bursts. It's extraordinary times. We are so grateful for those who have been able to apply our lessons. This has been very beneficial, not just to us, but to you. And we are so grateful to be able to reward you with our connections. This is a profound time for history and this planet, and those who have done their profound best will truly be proud of themselves. We want to say beyond forever, because this is an extraordinary opportunity, and and those who step up will be the future leaders in other experiences and experiments and other leadership roles. Because when you have proven yourself here on this planet at this time, it is extraordinary. It is extraordinary. It is so extraordinary to truly profoundly master the third dimension in this density. Many have tried to succeed and many have unfortunately failed. There's no judgment, but it is merely a reflection on their experience. We do not want to put pressure on you. Many of you are trying to be perfectionists. You will find your balance. Breathe. Every day can just be allowed to unfold as it needs to. You don't need to be focusing and rushing for future. Allow the future to arrive as it will. We are helping so much, and we are encouraging many epiphanies. We have been protecting the land of Australia because it is significant. It is sacred in many, many ways. We thank all who want to still stand up and be of service, because we know the courage and the strength it takes. Many are listening to you. Many are too afraid still to share what you do. Many are learning from you. So when you consider that, what are you teaching others? How are you empowering yourself to show others how to empower yourself and themselves? This is such extraordinary times for you to have self-reflection. We love this energy that we've been able to provide you. It has got much peace and serenity in this energy we're giving you today. And anytime you listen to this, it will be quite a deeper, balanced reflection of self. We're so grateful to be able to be of service. We are enjoying holding this space and energy for you. And we thank you. We thank you. We thank you.